Hello, everyone. It's an honour to introduce this deputation from the Morning Lane People's Space campaign group. MOPs, as they are known, set out to find out what local people wanted to see on the big Tesco site in Morning Lane. And as many of us will know, they've been out in the community on their stall outside Tesco, come rain or shine, many weekends over the past 2 years. They've spoken to thousands of people. I think they set an inspirational example of how to really engage with the public. So much of the planning process is shrouded in mystery, and understandably, many people feel they have little influence over what gets built in their areas. We spent public money when we bought this site, and I think it is important that the public have a say over what gets built here, and that we are transparent about how decisions are reached. As MOPs have shown, people overwhelmingly want to see council housing and keep a Tesco supermarket if there is going to be any new development. Whilst councils do not receive government funding for council house building, owning the land is a good start. And there are examples of councils achieving as much as 42% social housing in developments such as the old Holloway prison site, where the Mayor of London contributed additional money to Peabody. I hope we can explore similar funding sources to ensure we get as much council housing as possible. Asking questions is an important part of the democratic process. MOPs are unpaid volunteers, and I would like to thank them for their hard work, for their efforts in identifying what people want to see, and for asking what has happened so far. Thank you.
Thank you. When Hackney Council bought the Morning Lane site, they took out a preferential options agreement with Hackney Walk, the developers responsible for the failed fashion hub. This, I start again. Well, for tall people. Okay. All right, can I start again? So when Hackney Council bought the Morning Lane site, they took out a preferential options agreement with Hackney Walk, who were the discredited developers of the failed fashion hub. And this seriously undermined the trust in the council. There was no transparency or scrutiny of this options deal. As you've heard, the pre-planning plans outlined a smaller supermarket for the site and 450 private homes. Our survey in 2020 found that local people, the biggest issues were to have a supermarket the same size and council housing. Strikingly, at the time, many did not believe the council would ever deliver a development that was in the interest of Hackney residents. However, the options agreement has lapsed, and we now have an opportunity to draw up new proposals. By explaining these while carrying out a new survey, we find that more people believe that whatever consultation we as MOPs do, the council will always do what they want, and that they're likely to sell off Morning Lane site to private developers. Trust has been lost because the process lacked transparency. Trust has been lost because neither the developers nor the council carried out a consultation. MOPs, we've carried out the consultation, and we are trusted by the community. Trust has also been lost because of the involvement with Hackney Walk, and the importance of rebuilding trust cannot be overstated. So the challenge for all councillors is how the council can engage with the community in developing plans for 55 Morning Lane and ensure transparency and proper scrutiny that can start to rebuild this trust.
Adam has spoken about rebuilding trust. We also need information to ensure public scrutiny of future plans. We need information to test the financial viability of charging low rents to recover all costs of the build project. We need transparency over contracting and costings, and trust and openness in our dealings. We have worked with the planning master students at UCL, who have created financial viability studies for the site to build homes for low rent and commercial and retail space for rent. These studies show that it is possible to create a viable development with 50% or more council housing. The Mayor claims this is impossible, The public must be able to see the basis for this claim. The council has said it will accept a payback period of 30 to 40 years for the homes, which this plan delivers, charging low rents for homes. The Audit Commission has said up to 60 years payback period is still good value for councils, and well-built homes will be contributing for many more years after that. In addition to the demands in the written deputation, we want to speak with the council's quantity surveyor and housing officers to test the viability of our return on capital models.
You have 1 minute left. Thank you.
And data on the actual costs of the estate management and maintenance. In this way, we can engage and contribute to the project and help ensure that local residents' priorities are embedded in any plans.
Through our discussions with the community, we're acutely aware of the significance of this site to the people of Hackney. They're clear about what's wanted and what's needed in Morning Lane. For their part, the council should ensure that its actions inspire the confidence and support of the people they serve. Going forward, it's essential there's transparency, openness and accountability. For this to happen, there needs to be a recognition and acknowledgement of the breakdown of trust that's occurred between Hackney Council and residents because of the previous failed and poorly constructed options agreement. There needs to be a determined effort to build retrust, and to do this, we ask that the council make public the unredacted option agreement, any checks that were done on Hackney Walk before entering into an agreement with them, and all the pre-application exchanges between the council and Hackney Walk. Residents need to be able to engage fully with the process to scrutinise decision-making and hold the council to account. In addition, we ask that the council make public and discuss at the full council meeting the reports that inform the option agreement, including any viability studies or other reasoning that contributed to the decision to set a target of 20% so-called affordable housing on this site.
Thank you. Time is finished. The allocated time is finished. Thank you very much. Members have 5 minutes to ask questions on what has been presented. You're reminded that this is an opportunity to ask questions for clarity and not to make statements, following which I will invite Mayor Glanville to respond. Councillor Lynch.
Can I ask a question, or do you want the Mayor to respond first?
Question first, please.
Sorry?
Question first, please. For clarity.
For those that know me, I'm Councillor Anna Lynch.
Councillor Lynch, will you please stand up?
So, of course, sorry, Madam Speaker. Sorry. So I'm one of the Homerton councillors, along with Rob Nicholson, and my question is to the people that are here today. Would you not agree with us as ward councillors, and the council has always tried to do its best for residents in our ward in regard to the Morning Lane area, and continues to work to that end, including the Mayor recently meeting with you as a group to discuss the way forward? And would you not agree that the previous options agreement gives the council and the community a fresh start for the site? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lynch. Councillor Steinberger.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I was by one of your introductions and I heard the statement that in order to build, it'll cost like 300,000 or something to build a 1-bedroom. It seems very ambitious. I don't know what they're putting in this 1-bedroom. Have you made your own inquiries to find out how much it should cost really a 1-bedroom flat?
Thank you, Councillor Steinberger. Councillor Pembroke, please.
Very much. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for calling me, and thanks to Morning Lane Space for coming to address it today. And am I on now? Okay, thanks. Thanks very much for coming to address us today. My question is: since the agreement with Hackney Walk, has expired and they're no longer involved, could you explain a little bit more why it's important to have the option agreement between Hackney Walk and the council published in full? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pembroke. And the final question from Councillor Benny Lubbock.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate the committed work you've been doing on this. I understand that there's been freedom of information requests to the council. What were they and what were the outcomes of those?
So thank you all.
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Benny Lubbock. Would you like to answer the questions that have been asked? Pardon? And could you please just stand behind the...
Oh, sorry.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
So the freedom of information requests are essentially the things that we're asking for now. We think that there is no longer a commercial sensitivity argument because the deal has fallen through. Public interest is incredibly important and overweighs all of that now. So it is for the payments that went through between Hackney Walk and the council. It is for the correspondence between Hackney Walk and the council around the development, around the pre-application process. It is for any checks that were done on Hackney Walk. Those three, one of them is being investigated by the ICO now. As a campaign, we don't have the capacity to push all three to the ICO. But thank you for the question. I would like to also thank all the councillors who've engaged with us. Come to our meetings, come outside leafleting. We have given copies of the two most recent leaflets to someone here in the council to distribute to us because we weren't allowed to bring them to the meeting. We're happy to answer any questions. I would just note that it's unfortunate that Anna and the other two councillors for Homerton have not engaged with us as a campaign. We would welcome that engagement. We have contacted them regularly and encouraged them to do that. Guy Nicholson has engaged with us in a limited way in his capacity.
Sorry, that is not answering the questions.
Yeah, so in that sense, I haven't had a chance to talk to the councillors, to my point, in response to Anna's question. I don't know what they think is for the best for people locally, so I can't address that. Maybe I think something different and we as a campaign think something is different. But if they engage with us, we can have that conversation. I think that's very important. Her second question was, do we think that this is a fresh start? I think we think it's a conditional fresh start, the falling through of the option agreement. And it's conditional on what we're saying. It's conditional on openness, transparency, accountability. Without those things, we do not think this is an opportunity for a fresh start. We think it's an opportunity to screw things up again, which is what we think the option agreement was. So it's very, very important that this deputation is taken seriously and the council come clean about exactly what went wrong so that we can have public scrutiny, so we can rebuild trust. Because obviously something went wrong. We just don't know what. So please be honest with the people of Hackney. Be honest with us. I don't know whether I've missed a question. Oh, that's answers Fliss's question as well, doesn't it? Thank you, Fliss. It says why we need, even though the deal is out, is done, even though Hackney Walk have gone, we still need that transparency. It's even more important than ever because we're back to square one on this site. The council's bought the site and we don't have plans for it. So it's going back to that point that we were at 5.5 years ago. So this is where we talk about it openly and where you involve the public, where you involve us, where you involve everyone who's a stakeholder. I don't know about the 300,000.
Thank you. The allocated time is up. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll now invite Mayor Glanville to respond. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Madam Speaker, and thanks to Councillor Joseph, Adam, Heather, Pat, UCL and the MOPS campaign for coming this evening. Madam Speaker, I want to reiterate our commitments to local people in Morning Lane Tesco site. As I've said before in this chamber, in public reports and in meetings with the MOPS leadership. And I'd just like to sort of caveat, I've been at almost every public meeting that you've organised, apart from the one where Deputy Mayor Nicholson deputised. And I think we went into far more detail there than it's possible to do in a set piece debate here in the chamber. Any plans for the redevelopment of Tesco Morning Lane will always put the needs of the community first. Now that the option has expired, we have the opportunity to start afresh on developing a community-first approach. But I dispute the core argument of the deputation. It was not poorly constructed, nor did it lack transparency. And indeed, while it failed, it always sought to manage risk and protect the interests of the council and the community. I think I said at the last meeting as well, we wouldn't be having this debate at all if it wasn't for the foresight and actions of this administration in buying this site and returning it to public ownership. But it's really clear what was right then isn't right now. That means a competitive procurement process, Madam Speaker, to appoint an experienced developer for the site, one that the council and the community can work together with in an open and productive way. And we've already looked at the options agreement and there's no plan to sell the site. Options appraisal, no plan to sell the site. Together, I believe we can develop a collective and exciting vision for the site and deliver on a fantastic opportunity at the heart of our town centre and rebuild the trust that you talk about. Working together means delivering on the priorities of the community, which was our ambition when we first bought the site, and manage the risk to the council. But that also means accepting some of the commercial sensitivities, including the fact that publicly publishing the previous options agreement would undermine the council's negotiating position with any future developer. At the same time, the council remains bound by the confidentiality wording in the agreement for a further 7 years. This is normal and accepted practice for legal agreements such as these to protect both parties, which in this case includes the council from protecting us from legal risk. Therefore, at this time, the council cannot release the options agreement without the risk of legal action being taken against us, and doing so would result in legal battles at the expense of the council taxpayer. This includes pre-application correspondence, which is always confidential and exempt from FOI legislation. I want to be clear, though, we took extensive due diligence checks both on Hackney Walk and Dukeminster to comply with our legal and financial obligations. We have also always been clear on our ambitions, which were set out in the public and open and transparent Cabinet report in 2017 in January. New jobs, new workspaces, public spaces, new genuinely affordable homes. And the 20% affordable housing level set out in the options agreement was never a target, but the minimum level of affordable housing required to be met by any development scheme. This minimal level set because at the time this was at the level where the previous Tory Mayor of London had set his floor in the London plan. Sadiq had not been elected and he'd been elected, but he'd not been able to approve that position. Obviously, we now have the Mayor of London's 35% and 50% targets, and across both, the 50% target in our planning policy. When I spoke in the chamber to Councillor Garbett's question, our last full council in July, I spoke about our experience as a developer of council homes and how much they cost to build. It wasn't in the direct context of this site, and we have to recognise there is the sunken land value worth £60 million. But on average, as Councillor Steinberger heard me say at the public meeting, it costs between £350,000 and £400,000 for the council to build a new council home. So, Madam Speaker, if we're talking about 450 homes on this site, if we went to the full 100% council rent, which I know some aspire to, that would be a cost of £180 million to the council. If we're aiming for 50%, it would be £90 million. And that has to be the baseline for any modelling about a future options agreement that includes council social rented housing. There is no current scheme, though, proposed for 55 Morning Lane, so there is no viability studies to provide, as these will be based on a detailed new plan for the site, developed in-house with our teams, but also with a development partner in due course. All these plans would need to comply with the council's current planning policy as set out in LP 33, and this administration introduced last term, developing collaboratively with local people. I'll finish, Madam Speaker, because I fear that I might be running out of time. With 5 very, very clear commitments. 1, we will prioritise the delivery of genuinely affordable housing, pursuing every option to fund this on the site. The council is 2, clear that there needs to be a supermarket on the site, and will work with partners to deliver this, including looking at the size of that supermarket and whether Tesco is willing to increase the size. 3, we will use 55 Morning Lane to benefit Hackney Central and the borough as a whole via the delivery of not just housing, but workspaces, new uses for the town centre, opportunity for business and more jobs and higher quality green spaces. 4, we will use the views of the community to shape how the site is developed. And 5, and finally, in the spirit of your deputation and picking up Adam's key point, we will be open, honest and transparent, including about how we balance the different needs, requirements and constraints of the site to the community and the council. I know how much time and energy and thought local people, especially Morning Lane People's Base, have put into gaining interest in gathering news in the community, and I'll make sure that you're a partner with us as we take the next steps. Thank you.
Fine. Thank you, Mayor Glanville, and I want to thank your deputation leader, Heather Mendick, and those accompanying her for coming today and representing deputation.